Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium for the 11th of January 2021. Today I am going to dedicate the session on talking about the buy and sell zone algo. There's been a lot of questions coming in about how it's used, what the configuration options do, so I'm just going to spend today's session on talking about that. Also, I think it's very important to understand how it can be used. It will open trades for you, so it can be considered an automated trading robot, but at the same time it must be used with discretion, it must be used carefully, and it must be used on demo accounts. And if you choose to put it on a real account, you're doing so knowing the risks involved. And I've added this small warning just here that'll tell you when it's on a live account, just so if you accidentally click on a live account, then you'll have a message like that, so that you have the opportunity to switch it off or move back to a demo account. Okay, so a brief overview. Back in the days when I started developing the supply and demand software, which you can see here on the left side of the chart, we have a piece of software that was essentially analyzing lots of different areas of price patterns where liquidity was being distributed, and I wanted a way to be able to identify the best configuration for the software. And so I needed some kind of a tool that would enable me to run the supply and demand software in some kind of a back tester to simulate historical market conditions that would tell me which configuration was the best one. And so this is actually what the buy and the sell zones robot is. It's a utility, an in-house utility that I've been using for many years, which I actually wrote over 5 years ago to help me identify the most beneficial combination of parameters for my discretionary software, the stuff that we use on a daily basis. And without that, it was essentially guesswork, or at least it slowed down the process to a very high degree. So I wanted a way where I could run through hundreds of thousands of different iterations in an attempt to try and identify the perfect combination of parameters. And while the perfect combination of parameters seems to be pretty elusive for anything, not only trading software, but anything in life, the software enabled me to find something that would work most of the time. And while this is changing constantly, the backtester also enables me to run the analysis, the back testing analysis on a relatively regular basis and update the default configuration options for the software. So that's a little bit about my motivation to write it and a little bit about the history of the software. Okay, so what I like to do with it is, well, as a matter of fact, I realized that it could be used as a standalone algo trader as well. And so I put it on an account and I let it run, and it was actually doing the exact same thing on the live market that it was doing in the back tester. And so it was opening and closing trades for me. And so I thought, wow, well, why don't I just expand and create this, rather, release it as some kind of utility that that members can use. And this is essentially what I've done with the flag that it should be used on demo accounts, because in the wrong hands, as with anything, something that's quite powerful can be abused and bad things can happen. This is the same for a gun. It can provide food, but it can also kill people, take lives. And so the trading software, an automated trading software, while it can be used to create income, it can also be used to destroy trading accounts. And so it's super important that you understand the risks associated with using any kind of automated trading software. Okay, so now it is its own piece of software. It runs in MT4 like any other expert advisor, and so you simply drag it onto the chart and it will appear in the top right corner, as you can see just here. Here it says Pipnotic buy and sell zones, parentheses dev, and that's because this is a development version. And this is the next version I'm just about to release, well, I'll release in the next week or so. And this is the one that includes the updates from the new supply and demand software that I have running on the left side. And so typically what I'll have is, as many of you are aware, I like to have two sides of my charts where I have some kind of an analysis or information on the left side, and then a different kind of software or perhaps a little bit of automation on the right side. And I just like to divide and conquer. And so my two chart configuration is also the way I like to use the buy and sell zone software here. Okay, and so I can see it up here, and I just switch it on when I like it. I don't let it run all the time. While it can do that, I like to turn it on when I find that it has found something that looks attractive. And so I'll perform a discretionary analysis, and then I'll switch it on when I think that it's found something that I find attractive. So for example, earlier on, or not that long ago, on the 30-minute chart, it was saying that we should have bought right here. I can just go back to the 30-minute chart and we can have a look. It said that we should have bought just here, but I didn't do that. And why didn't I allow it to trade? Well, I didn't do that because we're in a downtrend. And so I think buying at this area of demand, while it is nicely formed, it did remove this area of supply. It's in a downtrend, and we have a big wick here, so we just tested this turning point in the market, and so I would expect that this area of demand will get removed, and maybe it will or it won't during the video today, but so there is a little bit of discretion. I'm also working on a very sophisticated filter that will enable us to discover a directional bias. So this will be some kind of a trend filter that will enable the software to trade only in line with the predominant trend. So that's something I'm currently working on, and I started doing that yesterday. So that's still there's still a bit of work involved in getting that finished up. But once that's done, then I'll add that to this piece of software, the Algo Trader, and then it would be possible to switch it on and let it run. Just put it on a few price charts, switch it on, and then you can walk away, and fingers crossed it does a good job. But I'm not comfortable doing that. I like to add a little bit of discretion to everything for the reasons that we just discussed, and it just helps, I think, and it keeps us sharp. That's the main reason. I don't want myself to get lazy. I don't want to get lazy because I have a piece of software that trades automatically. I want to continue to put in legwork. I want to understand the markets, and by just clicking a piece of software onto my chart, turning it on and walking away sounds like a really nice and fancy idea. It'll make me lazy, and I don't like laziness so much, and so this is something I'd like to avoid. And so forcing myself to perform my analysis, to draw my own conclusion, and then switching on the robot, if I agree, then this enables me to keep my chops sharp, it keeps my head sharp, it ensures that I'm still studying the market like I always have done, and this is just something that I think is much more beneficial and sustainable for myself and everything else, and also the software that I create. Okay, so what I do here is I have my discretionary window and my automation window, and so I have a look here, and I'll have a look at what's going on, and you can see here this is a very short-term chart. We have a 30-minute, and so we're in a downtrend. So does that mean I want to buy here? No, it doesn't. I don't want to buy there because of that reason. If you go on a bigger time frame, maybe we'll see that we're actually reacting at a greater area of demand, and I haven't performed that part of the analysis, so I don't know. This is just an example, but if that was the case, then maybe I'd be more comfortable in taking this trade here. But again, this would be picking a bottom. Okay. And so if we have a quick look at the software, it looks like this. It looks actually quite similar to the supply and demand software where we have the product key and the private key. And the product key is not the same as the software key for the supply and demand and the currency strength software. The product key is the one that's available in the pin messages in the buy and sell zone channel on our Discord channel. Okay, so it's important that you realize that and remember that. So if we just have a quick look at that, so I show you where it is. So if you go here to the buy and sell zones and you click on pin messages, here you can see January product carry, and this is for the buy and sell zone robot. Okay, and if you're using the currency strength robot, you'll have a different one, which is up here. Okay, you go to the pin messages, and here it is. Here's the product key for the currency strength reversion algo. Okay, and so this stuff is available in the Discord channel. Then we have the private key, and this is the same as a software that you have with your other membership. Then we have the execution in seconds, and this is again just like the other software. This just tells the software how often to run. So if it was set to 1, then it will run every second, and that's a little bit too quick. Or if you didn't have any execution interval at all, it would run on every tick, and that's way too fast because we don't need to do that. We need to perform the analysis every, I don't know, every few minutes, every minute, every whatever, you can decide, but we want to do it in a way that prevents the software from using all of your CPU, because the calculations that are required are pretty extensive, so it's just nice to limit the overhead as much as possible. Okay, then we have allow and block. Okay, so if I want to create a whitelist, I can put it in here in the allow setting. If I want to create a blacklist, then I can just add the settings here. So I can put in here nothing, then it'll trade everything that we have in our market watch over here. But if, let's say, I don't want to trade the Euro USD, and I don't want to trade Swiss franc, and I don't want to trade British pound, then I would go like that, and then it would trade everything in here except for the Euro, American dollar, Swiss franc crosses, and British pound crosses. And that's how I'll do that. But if I only want to trade the Euro USD, then I'd go like that, and then it will only trade the Euro USD. Okay, and this is just to stop it from executing trades. For example, if you're dragging pairs over onto the chart like I do, and I want to make sure that even though I'm looking at a currency chart that is the Euro Swiss franc, that I'm not trading that Euro Swiss franc because I don't like that pair, for example. Okay, this is just to slow things down just a little bit. Okay, then we have conditions. Here we have the match slippage and spread. These are default values. These are normally fine. You can change these if you wish. We have the risk. So each trade is limited to 0.5%. So if the stop is, let's say this is the stop here, here's the entry and here's the stop, the volume of this trade will be 0.5%. Okay, so let's say that we bought down here. If the stop would have gotten hit, which it just did, then I would have lost 0.5% on that trade. And you can reduce that or increase it to whatever you like. I just like to keep things quite small and minimal. But if you want to, for example, trade only static lot sizes, then you can specify them here in the lot size. You can say 0.01, and then it'll only trade micro lots. And if you have a lot size, if you want a max lot size of, for example, a mini lot, then you could go like that. So no matter what the size of the stop was and how much you're risking, it would never trade more than one mini lot as a per trade. Okay, and then we have pair exposure. So this is just telling it how many positions to open per pair, and I've limited that to 1. I only want to have one trade on the Euro US dollar. Then it's down here, it is looking at currency exposure, and that essentially means that I only want to have 10 pending orders that are made up, rather that contain, for example, the Swiss franc. So I can have the Euro Swiss franc, the pound Swiss franc, the Aussie dollar Swiss franc, the whatever Swiss franc, the Thai baht Swiss franc, but no more. And this is a pretty high number, and so you might want to reduce this to a small number, like, for example, 3 or 2, because if you have great Swiss franc strength, you only want to experience that strength on maybe 2 pairs, because if you get into 2 trades that are crossed with the Swiss franc and we have a strong Swiss franc, that's going to affect the outcomes of both of those trades. And so this just helps limit the exposure to strength or weakness of individual currencies. Okay, then we have delete pending, and I do this quite a lot. Sometimes when I sit down in the morning, I'll have some pending orders left over from the previous day or the previous week. Sometimes I just want to do my analysis from scratch, and so I'll just simply set this to true, and then it'll delete all of the orders that are pending that the robot created historically or previously. That's just a nice way to wipe the slate clean. Okay, then we have some filters. We have positive swap only. When this is set to false, it will trade bullish, rather long and short, and it won't pay attention to the swap data here. But if this is set to true, it'll only trade in line with the swaps. So if you're going to earn money selling, it will only sell. If you're going to lose money selling, then it'll look to this value here and it'll say, well, how much are we allowed to trade, rather not trade, how much of a negative swap are we permitted? So how much are we willing to pay each day when the clocks chime? And this is set to -5. You can set this to whatever you want. And this is a difficult one because 5 euros, 5 Turkish lira, and so this value is almost useless. But if you put it to kind of a relatively small value, then you'll be sure that you'll be earning positive swaps, or at least not paying any negative swaps. And I normally keep this to false because a lot of my trades are over within a day or two, and so I normally have this set to false. But if this is important to you, then you can certainly set this to true, and then you can, for example, set this to 0, and then it'll only buy and sell where there's a carry potential for that specific symbol. Okay, we have something here which is not yet implemented. This is because I'm in the dev version, and this is related to the directional bias. I won't cover that now. I'll cover that in a new video in the future. Here we have the links. Sorry, I can't see that. Limits, and this is the stop and target. So here we have the stop multiplier, which is 2. So the software would have taken the size of the area that we saw here, the yellow one that is now gone, and it will multiply it by 2, and that would have been the size of the stop, and the target would have been 4 times the size of that little yellow rectangle that we saw just here. We have supply and demand settings here. We have enable slingshot mode. This is currently set to false, but what does that mean, slingshot mode? Let me find a different symbol so we can have a closer look at what that would mean. What it would do is, let's say that this was an area of supply. Just mark it off like that, because we have the area of supply, the candle going in the opposite direction, and the release. And then if you look at this, you say, well, here you can see we have a micro pullback. So price came down, it went up to this area, and then it left. So this is actually where price left from. So when it's in slingshot mode, it'll move the entry up to the deepest retracement since price left. And this is a really nice feature because this is typically where price will return to when it comes back, and also this ensures you get a better price whether you're buying or selling. So this is a really nice feature, and I encourage you to at least check it out if you're using this. Okay, let's have a look at the next setting. So we have enable slingshot mode, set to true or false. Then we have the start bar. Sometimes you want your analysis to start several bars behind. This is the 0 bar, but if I wanted to start my analysis, for example, 10 bars back in time, then you can set this to 10. I always leave this on 0 because this just enables me to start everything from bleeding edge price. There can be some situations where you want, for example, if there's an area here that you don't like, but there's an area down here that you do like, well then that you would set the start bar to the bar that is beyond this one here. So it starts the analysis here, which will bring its attention to this area just down here. So we'll leave this one alone, it'll move a little bit deeper into the data. Here we have the risk reward multiplier. This is relevant to how far price moves and in what period of time. I set these per default to 4.0 for the risk reward ratio, so it has to move 4 times the size of the area of supply and demand within 4 periods. And then here we have max accumulation. This is setting a filter telling the robot how many periods price is allowed to move sideways like this, distribute or accumulate before it leaves. Currently we are limiting it to 5 areas. So this here we have 2, here we have 3. If we look at something else, here we have a ton. Here we have 1, 2, okay, only 2 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 here. And so this just helps force the software to focus on areas where price didn't hang out for very long. Original supply and demand. When this is set to true, it's going to focus on supply and demand at the extremes. It'll only look at supply and demand at a point where we had a turn in price. So that means essentially where we had, for example, if price went up and went down and went up, it's not going to trade anything in here. It's going to wait until price comes here, because this is the origin of the move that caused price to move up to here. Okay, so origin trading is going to focus price on the extremes, like up here or here, or here, or here, and it's not going to focus too much about stuff that's going on in the middle, like in here, for example. And this just forces the robot to look at extreme prices instead of stuff in the middle. Origin significance, this is set to 1. This tells you how significant the area should be, the origin should be. And so we want 1 bar to the left and 1 bar to the right to not have violated the origin. So this one would be okay. This is not supply because nothing happened, but this is like a swing point essentially. So you're telling it, okay, this one here has 2 to the left and 2 to the right, so this would be qualified just here. But if you want it to be really extreme, where we wanted, for example, 10 bars on the left and 10 bars on the right, which are telling it that we want to look at origins where price has not been past the origin for 10 periods to the left and to the right, then you would set it to 10. And this ensures that we have an area that is very highly respected. You could also set it, for example, to 50, and then you would only get the extreme levels, the very high probability areas. Okay, and then we have opposing swing point significant, and this is telling it something about the areas of opposing supply and demand that it must remove in order to qualify an area of supply and demand. Okay, so for example, when price left here, it had to have removed an opposing area of supply and demand for it to be qualified. If it has not been qualified, then this area here will not be visible in the chart. And the higher this number, the more scrutiny; the lower the number, the less scrutiny. Allow multiple tests. I mean, sometimes you have an area, let's go like this, and price comes up, it goes up, you kind of hang out in the area, then it goes up and it comes down right to it and it comes up again. But the departure was so good that, you know what, we're going to take that one more time. Then you can say, okay, we'll take it one more time. So setting that to true will allow the robot to open a trade at an area of supply and demand, even though the box is dotted or dashed like we can see in the supply and demand software. Because sometimes price has an enormous reaction when it just pokes just through the edge of an area. And so, I mean the logic goes, if this happens, then there's a high likelihood that we'll have a response again next time. Okay, let's move on. Here we have numbers until expiration. So if the robot opens pending orders, if you set this to 10 and the trade was taken on the daily chart, the expiration for the orders taken on the daily chart will be 10 days from the time that the trade was open. So sometimes this is nice because let's say you have an area of supply or demand, price leaves and it doesn't come back within, let's say, 5 periods. Well, then you don't want to trade it because maybe price was able to feed into an opposing area of supply, which would reduce the chances of this area of demand working out in the future. So if price doesn't come back within, let's say, 5 or 10 periods, well, then we don't want to take it. We want to focus on an area that's closer to price, because price develops all the time, of course. And then here we have trend lines, which is what you can see here. It just shows us a little bit about the trend. Okay, and you can define here the width of the line if you want the trend lines to be switched on automatically, and something about the significance of the swing points. So you have this one here, you want 5 on the left and 5 on the right to qualify a swing, 5 on the left, 5 on the right to qualify the swing. That's why this one and this one were joined, and this lined up kind of nicely with this little area of pretty mediocre demand just here, which is, you can see prices having a bit of a reaction there. And then we have all of the colors here that we know, and which are the same as a supply and demand software. So this should make total sense. And then we have the magic number here. So if you're running, let's say, one instance of the software, then you don't have to fiddle with the magic number. But if you're running, let's say, 2 instances or more with different settings, you want each robot to manage its own trades. You don't want it to interfere with other instances trades, and so you would simply change the magic number on each instance of the robot so that it knows which trades belong to it and which ones do not. And so it's just a nice way to be able to differentiate between the two. And that's it, then we're good to go. So if we zoom out a little bit, I'll just show you what I'm doing. So if we have a look here, you can see that the supply and demand software found this area here, which it seems to like, and the software, the robot, is finding the exact same area. So what I'd do here, I mean, obviously if I wanted to trade this, I wouldn't want the stop to be that small. I'd want it to be below. So maybe I'd want maybe 4 times the size of this area just here. So I would just flick on the 4 times the size, for example, and we'll see if that brings it down below the low. And if it does, and I like it, then I would just turn it on. Let's wait for that, waiting for the algo execution interval to be met. Yeah, like that. And I'd just say, maybe move this down so you can see. I just click on the auto trading and it will open the trade based on my risk parameters. So I'm risking 0.5%, and according to 0.5% of my account, that trade would take 1.6 mini lots of volume to satisfy my risk criteria. Okay, and so now we're trading at this little area here. Price went this far away, price has not been back, so we have an entry in at that price level. Okay, so that's pretty much how I'm doing it. You can also just leave it on if you would feel so inclined, but if you do that, then I recommend that you go up to the bigger time frames. My research has made me feel incredibly comfortable with the 4-hour chart on British pound crosses. This seems to be, the British pound crosses seem to work out very, very well on the 4-hour chart. So I'd be more comfortable letting it run all the time on British pound crosses on the 4-hour chart than I would anything else. And if we have a look here at the pound Japanese yen, we'll see if it finds something. So I mean, if that's the case, then you would have all of the pairs open that you want it to trade. You would have magic numbers set on each of them, and then you would just switch on the robot and leave it alone, and then manage the trades from your telephone, which is pretty much what I'm doing. You can see here, let's reset the defaults to bring back the stop a little bit closer to what we can see here. I think it'll be 2 times the size, so it'll probably be down around here, the stop. There, just here. So the entry, the stop, and the target will be 2 times the size of this, so like 1, 2. Okay, so 1 to 2 risk reward. Okay, and this is just a nice departure. So if I wanted that, I'd say okay, auto trade. I just click it on, and the robot would open that for me, and then I'd be done. I'd ready to move, and I'd switch it off. I go to the pound Aussie, and I'd have a look there. In the pound Aussie, I think this is a half-an-hour trade. Let's have a look. Yes, we have a trade on here. I can't remember what time frame that was on. Let's find something else. And so what I'm doing is I'm just clicking through the time frames, and I'm very, very careful about the trend. What direction are we headed? We're headed down. Okay, then we only want to sell. We had this trade. This was yesterday. This was a beautiful trade. The robot got this trade. Price poked into this area, and price really moved away nicely. But you'll see these all the time. Let's have a look, see if there's anything here. Oh, this video is getting long. Here we have this one here, which is also very attractive, and we have another one down here. So the robot will find this one here, as you can see. But I just want to go to the bigger time frame. Where's the trend? We're going down. Okay, so I want to be selling. So maybe this one here is more interesting to me. And so what I'd do here is I would set the start bar to, let's say, 75. Then it's going to find the next one along, which is this one here. So I'll just do that quickly. Start bar. Put this on 75. And now it's going to start the analysis from bar 75, which is around here, which will bring our attention to the next area, which is just here. So fingers crossed, you should draw. There it is, right there. So I'm going to make that stop a little bit bigger. Put it 3. I'm going to put this on 5, and then I'm going to plop that in there. I'm just going to go auto trade, flick it on, and then it's going to open the trade like so. Like that. We have a very nice departure. We had this area where we had huge release, price sat on the area, we started to gnaw away at the liquidity available here, and then we cut away, we tested, and we left. So the beginning of the sell zone is here for this area of supply. Okay, so this is pretty much how I'm using the software. It's really powerful. One thing I can recommend is that you don't fiddle with the trades too much. You put on the trade, put in the risk, put in your stop, give it, just let it work out, because sometimes price will come up to here and it'll fiddle around here for a long time and then it'll leave. Sometimes it'll be there for half a day, or depending on what time frame you're on, longer. And so it's just best just to let the market do its thing. When price reaches an attractive price window, it will very likely turn around at that point, because it's going to attract people who are interested in transacting at that price. So the best thing to do is to not fiddle, and it's really difficult, but it's just the best advice I have is to not fiddle. So have good stops, have big targets, and just let it go. Just leave it alone. Have risk rewards of 6 to 10, for example, and have your target multiplier set to about 6 or 7 or 8, and have your stop on about 2 or max 4, and just let the odds play themselves out. And I'm almost convinced that you will do pretty well if you just let it do its thing. Okay, well, I'm gonna leave it at that. If you have any questions, please let me know. Post them in the Buy and Sell Zone channel, in the Discord channel, or leave a message below the video here. Thanks so much for watching.